Oh, come on, man. Who left the tap running?
Good evening, and welcome to Whenever You Are. I am Bandit Haze, and today I'm going to be talking about Psycho. So I should probably point out that I am going to be talking about some key plot points throughout the film, but I think by now everybody and they mama, see what I did there, already knows what happens in this film, even if you haven't seen it. But anyway, way back in 1960, when diversity in movies meant black and white, came a film by British director Alfred Hitchcock called Psycho. Now this is a film about a man who loved his mother so much he never wanted to let her go. Now the thing about this film is that it is known for its plot twist, where we found out at the end that Norman Bates and mother are the same person, but what I'm not sure that many realize is that this film actually has a lot of plot twists throughout. So what I'm going to do is go through the movie and talk about each one. Also, I have not seen Psycho 2, Psycho 3 or Psycho 4. They may very well try to explain certain things, but all things considered, they don't count. I mean, Psycho 2 came some 23 years after Psycho with a different director and a different writer, and the only two original cast members were Anthony Perkins and Vera Miles. And Vera Miles goes from playing Lila Crane to Lila Loomis, so what are they trying to say? That she married her dead sister's sideman? Really? Really? I mean, I could only assume they called it Psycho 2 because there's now two Psychos. But you know what? I might actually still watch Psycho 2 one day, but only because it's written by Spider-Man. But I digress. So the film opens up with Marion Crane and Sam Loomis presumably after they just finished getting buck wild. Now as they dress, they're talking about the possible future of their relationship, setting the film up to be a complicated love story. Marion wants a respectable relationship. She wants to get married and have dinner with her mother's picture on the mantle. Sam is a divorcee that has to pay his ex-wife alimony, which makes it impossible for him to remarry. Bear in mind that this is 1960, before the sluts and waste men took over. Attitudes towards sex and marriage were different back then. Now the next scene is Marion's workplace. She works at an estate agency with Alfred Hitchcock's daughter, while Alfred Hitchcock stands outside keeping tabs on her. Her boss, Mr. Lowry, has a rich client, Mr. Cassidy, who flaunts $40,000 in front of Marion and practically asks to be robbed.
I never carry more than I can afford to lose.
But Marion is a good girl, trustworthy, so much so that Mr. Lowry asks her to put the money in a safety deposit at the bank and lets her go straight home afterwards because the poor girl wasn't feeling too well. But $40,000 is a lot of money, enough to make a good girl do a bad thing. Plot twist. The story went from, I just want a real relationship, to, all about the Benjamins, baby. But can you blame her? $40,000 in 1960 is about the equivalent of $328,000 today. And if you're the dirty little secret to a nigger that can't or won't wife you, and you just saw an opportunity to get away from it all, you'd probably take the money and run too. Well, actually, some of y'all bitches, well, you'd be sticking around talking about, but I love him. So now we have a story about a woman on the run from her life with a stolen $40,000 in her car. Her sister Lila, her boss, and her boyfriend just want to get her back without involving the police. Mr. Lowry even hires a private investigator, but will they get to her before the police, or before she goes too far? Will Sam just say, screw it, let's do it, and get married and make Marion lick the stamps as he sends his ex-wife her alimony checks? We'll never know, because, plot twist, the film isn't about Marion at all. So after confrontation with the police and trading her car, Marion checks into the Bates Motel, where she meets the manager, Norman Bates, who lives in the old house on the hill with mother. Now real quick side notes, the proper way to address a young man is actually master, which means we really should be calling him Master Bates. Clearly, I never really did the whole growing up thing. In fact, if I may speculate for just a moment, I think that's kind of how he got his name. When he was born, his dad was all like, "Oh, gee, I can't wait till he starts jerking off." But then his mother was like, "No, man." Anyway, Marion tells Master Bates that she's gotten herself into a spot of bother and wants to go back home in the morning to sort it out before it's too late. But as it turns out, Mother is a crazy old lady that kills women who eat her food.
Don't tell her she'll not be appeasing her ugly appetite with my food.
So now we have a film about a killer mother and the dutiful son. Norman tries to keep things normal, but mother, puta is loco ese. She kills Marion, she kills Arbogast, but to be fair, he did enter the house without permission, so it could come under self-defense, and quite frankly, a private investigator should know better. But will Norman succeed in helping mother get away with her crimes, or will he turn her over to the authorities, or will he put her someplace? None of the above, because plot twist, Norman and mother are the same person. So what is all this in aid of? Well, what we have is a lot of misdirection. The audience is led to believe one thing, then it turns out to be another, and then something else. And the reason why this is significant is because it is effectively the same thing that the characters are going through. We know about Marion's affair, as does her sister, but to everyone else, she's missed straight and narrow. Didn't even look at the money when Mr. Cassidy was flaunting it in front of her. Who would have thought that Marion, of all people, had mind to steal from her employer? And that's because, plot twist, sorta, Marion didn't have mind of stealing from her employer, at least not right away. Marion told Caroline that she's going to go to the bank and then go home. But the next scene is Marion at home, still with the cash. She didn't go to the bank, but she also didn't go home first either. When she's driving, she sees her boss, Mr. Lowry, who gives her a look as if to say, "Wagwan," and then walks off. Just before that, we hear a one-sided voiceover conversation from Sam. Marion went to see Sam first. Perhaps one last try at making it a respectable relationship, because in the end, she's just like some of you modern bitches talking about, let me give this nigger another one more last chance. Anyway, it didn't work out, and then she started to think about getting away from it all, making a fresh start with the $40,000. I mean, after all, it's not like Mr. Cassidy's gonna miss it, since he never carries more than he could afford to lose. So Mr. Lowry gives her the "you what mate" look, because at the time he saw her, she should have already been to the bank and then be at or on her way home. Instead, she's coming from her home, so he's thinking, that's odd, but the girl's been working for me for 10 years, I trust her. Whereas Marion initially smiles when seeing Mr. Lowry because she is a good girl. She ain't about that life. Most probably for the moment, forgot that she just stole $40,000 from her boss. I mean, she is blonde after all, so... Now, what about the money? We know that mother killed Marion because she ate her sandwich, but neither mother or Norman knew about the money because both of them were too dumb to check if she had anything valuable on her before dumping her in the swamp. Even Scary Movie knew to do that. However, everyone else assumes that whatever happened to Marion, the money has something to do with it. Now, this isn't stated in the film, but it is kind of implied that whoever knew about the money is involved. When Arbogast was talking to Sam and Lila, it's quickly established that Sam knew nothing about the money, and Arbogast doesn't really question him much further after that. Later, when Arbogast begins to suspect something about Master Bates, he calls Lila and tells her that he doesn't think Sam has anything to do with it. So I think Arbogast stopped suspecting Sam early on, then decided it definitely wasn't Sam when he started to believe that Marion might be paying Norman to hide her. Or, plot twist-ish, Arbogast was actually planning on robbing Norman and mother for the $40,000 he thought they had. When Arbogast began to suspect Norman, he called Sam and asked to speak to Lila and tells that he doesn't think Sam knew that Marion was at a hotel. But the fact that he called Sam to speak to Lila means that Arbogast, a private investigator, knowingly left Lila with someone who may have kidnapped her sister. Now, we know that Sam didn't kidnap Marion, but they don't know that yet. Furthermore, why would Arbogast be calling Sam to speak to Lila? Neither Sam or Lila hired him to investigate Marion's disappearance. Why wasn't he calling Mr. Lowry with the update? Unless, now knowing that boyfriend Sam had nothing to do with it, and Lila being a sister, they're the ones most likely to be eager to follow him. So he gives them a little whiff of the bone just to keep them at bay for an hour, while Arbogast goes back to the motel, checks the safe, goes into the house to search for the $40,000, but of course, Mama don't play that. Even the police chief thought that Arbogast might be dodgy. though albeit for different reasons. So what we have here is a film that tells multiple stories with characters that exist for reasons other than to advance the plot, and as such the way the film starts, the way it progresses and the way it ends are all completely different. I suppose the message of this film is, and if I may quote a 20th century poet, don't trust nobody, especially a bitch. Or, something to do with not making assumptions because not everything is as it may seem at first, or something like that. We do get an explanation as to Norman Bates and Mother being the same person, Norman Bates having split personality disorder and being deeply disturbed ever since his father died, being jealous of his mother, killing his mother and her new lover, and being so unable to deal with that he convinced himself that his mother was still there by becoming his mother. And that's all well and good. I mean, it's not good, but in terms of an explanation, that's all well and good. But if Norman had truly convinced himself that his mother was still there, why would he initially try to tell Arbogast that he lived alone? And why would he try to hide Mother when he knew people might be coming to the house? Unless, on some level, was Norman fully aware of everything that he was doing? Plot twist? Well, that's what my big, bold son thinks of this godforsaken film. A load of nonsense if you ask me. But you, villagers, is that what you're called? I suppose you want to say what you think, eh? Leave some kind of judgment, eh? Well, I suppose you can leave a comment, and perhaps I'll tell my son to respond to the ones I deem worthy. Anyway, I should thank you for stopping by the Haze Motel. If you liked it, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike. See if I care. But until whenever, if ever, why, I wouldn't even hurt a fly.